our Dean of Students will now introduce our very special Class of 1973 graduation speaker.
Yes, I have the pleasure of introducing Colonel Carla Bass. As Mrs. Thoburn said, she is the graduate of Fairfax Christian School in the class of 1973. She is one of few women who served in the Air Force for over 30 years. She served as a defense attaché, as a daily briefer to the director of the NSA, and as a commander of the 694th Intelligence Group. She led with great responsibility for various Air Force members. She used her writing skills to compose important products for the White House, Congress, general officers, and ambassadors. Upon retirement, she became an accomplished author, winning 11 awards for her writing. Specifically, she wrote the book, Right to Influence, which educated readers about the effective communication of business and life. Additionally, she shares her experience in other forms, including workshops, webinars, and coaching programs. Now, please welcome Colonel Carla Bass.
Thank you. Now I know this is a day for the graduates, but I would like to take a second to give special recognition to the parents. So would all the parents please rise? Come on, you guys, financiers. Congratulations to the honored graduates. You have each received a unique and special gift today. The parents and the faculties and staff of Fairfax Christian School have given you a toolkit. Now, this is my toolkit. Okay, Fairfax Christian School. Your tools are invisible. Your tools are intellectual. Computer science, physics, languages, math, biology, economics. These tools will position you to be able to acquire an even more robust set of tools from college. And with those tools, you'll be able to pursue professional careers or advanced academic degrees. And presumably, at that point, you'll retire your FCS toolkit. And that's exactly what I thought 50 years ago. Where did that time go? But that's exactly what I thought when I'm sitting down there 50 years ago. It's okay, I get to college, FCS is done, and I move on. And I'm telling you how wrong I was. 3 exquisite tools that I gained from Fairfax Christian School actually framed my entire life. They catapulted my success through a 30-year Air Force career, through 15 years with the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, where I still work today, and also as an author, a speaker, and a private coach teaching others how to write powerfully. So in my time with you today, what I want to do is explain each one of those tools, and I'll give you an exact situation where I applied it. And then when I'm done with that, I'm going to contribute 3 tools to your toolbox and send you off that way. So my first tool from Fairfax Christian School, my literary instructor, Mr. Carl Greff, made us frequently memorize long and complex poems like The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe, or Ode to a Grecian Urn by John Keats. And then he made us stand up in front of the class and recite those darn things. And if that wasn't bad enough, he graded us on our presentation. Okay, so was that difficult? Oh my golly, yes. But what we gained from that was a self-confident stage presence. Now, situation. That stage presence was immensely useful when, as a first lieutenant, I was 22 years old, and I was selected to be the daily briefer to the director of the National Security Agency. So I've got to tell you, that was high stress, high visibility, and 0 margin for error. So the ability to speak and being comfortable on a stage also played dividends later on, actually for decades, when I was speaking to congressional staffs and other general officers, to foreign dignitaries, and then later as I gave presentations and conferences, and most recently, giving live interviews on TV, radio, and broadcasts. What I learned there is that when you're communicating, seconds count and words matter. The second tool from Fairfax Christian School was Mrs. Gelwick's, my English teacher. She was a grammar martinet. Martinet means someone who is a demanding instructor. She insisted on precision, and she drilled us incessantly on parts of speech, sentence structure, and sentence diagramming. It was Mrs. Gelwick's who gave me the nascent ability to write powerfully. 15 years later, I finally realized the far-reaching impact of that particular tool. So it may take you a long time to recognize the tools that you're gaining from Fairfax Christian School, but they're there and you'll use them. Okay, so situation. I was assigned to the Pentagon as the chief of a 30-person division. And in that capacity, it was my responsibility to recommend my deserving troops for professional recognition, which I did, and they won. Time and time again, they won. Quarterly awards, annual awards, congressional fellowships, and I ended up earning the moniker of the Major with the Silver Pen. Now, how many of you out there know about Rumpelstiltskin? Anybody Rumpelstiltskin? Okay, there's a point to all this, all right? So Rumpelstiltskin, for those of you who don't know, was an elf who was able to spin straw into gold. So what my guys did in that division, they were hard performers. They did their jobs. They brought back the results. That was the straw. My contribution to them was being able to compose the winning nominations. I spun their straw into gold. Now that sparked an epiphany, like a lightning bolt from heaven. I realized in that moment that powerful writing changes lives, and that's one of my primary battle cries now. I realized that no matter how well you perform, no matter what you accomplish, if you can't convey that and the impact of what you've done clearly and concisely, game over, the competition wins. So that singular insight played a pivotal role in my next assignment. I went to Hawaii. I was selected as a squadron commander in charge of 480 young troops. When I arrived, that squadron was the most losing unit, almost laughable, in the state professional awards. And again, the troops were wonderful. They were doing great work, but the supervisors couldn't tell their stories. So the consequence is that deserving careers were inadvertently truncated because the boss couldn't write. And so I had to fix the problem. So I took 3 days and I sequestered myself in a beach cabin and I analyzed my writing. I knew from the previous assignment that I was doing something right, I just didn't know what it was. So I developed my techniques, I molded those into a writing methodology, and I taught my guys how to write. And in scant time, our unit became the one to beat. And what was really amazing is I ended up teaching that little 1-hour workshop for the next 15 years to thousands of Air Force people. I had no idea that the whole was that vacuous and so many people needed to know how to write that way. So that experience resulted in my second battle cry, and that is that powerful writing is a fundamental leadership skill. Now, bringing this particular vignette full circle, I had the opportunity to circle back to Mrs. Gelwick's. Now, this is like 15 years after I graduated. I called her husband, and he explained to me that Mrs. Gelwick's had had a stroke, that she was home, she was bedridden, she couldn't speak, but she could understand. So I took a picture of myself from 7th grade, and I visited her. And I had the opportunity to explain the impact that she was having on so many lives, people whom she'd never met, because she taught me how to write. So, Mrs. Gelwick is up there someplace, and I will always owe her a debt of honor. Okay, the third tool I got from SCS is languages. So for me, in junior high school and high school here, German and Latin were mandatory, which is great, I loved them. In my senior year, Fairfax Christian School introduced Russian 101, Spanish 101, and French 101. So I took those too. So the situation with that tool is that what I learned in Fairfax Christian School developed an aptitude in me for being able to learn foreign languages, which really applied to my Air Force careers in two particular instances. First was Turkish. I applied this when I was deployed for a 6-month deployment to Incirlik Air Base, Turkey. My job there, along with my staff, was to defend the US and the Allied aircraft that were patrolling in hostile airspace over northern Iraq. This is the days when Saddam Hussein was still a dictator. Saddam Hussein's goal was to shoot down our aircraft. My goal was to bring them home safely. The second language that was immensely valuable was Bulgarian. For my 3-year tour in that country, representing America's military to our Bulgarian counterparts. The timing of that was interesting. The position vacated suddenly and unexpectedly. The Air Force said, "Carla, we usually give 1-year language training. Can you accomplish this in 4 months?" And the answer, thank you to FCS, was, "Yep, I can do that." And I did. Now, mind you, when I arrived in country, I couldn't speak in the future tense, which was a little bit problematical, so I had to do a lot of learning on the fly there, but I made it happen. Now, to recap my 3 tools, the first tool was, my affinity for FCS was English and languages. Now, to the graduates here, your strengths may likely lie elsewhere, but the point is still the same. The tools you take from here will serve you a lifetime. Now, I'm going to add tools to your toolkit. The first I offer you is this advice of keep your sense of humor. Life is going to throw curveballs at you. That's part of the excitement. A sense of humor dispels the panic, and it lets you think clearly when you most need to do so. So the situation. The scene is our home in Bulgaria. I'm about 1 hour away from throwing a major dinner party for the Deputy Defense Minister, several generals, and their wives. The crisis is all of a sudden the electricity dies. It doesn't flicker, it's dead. Okay, so do I panic maybe for a second or two? And then I had this real quick conversation with God. I said, "Sir," you always call him sir. I said, "This is a challenge, right?" And I get the idea that, yeah, it is. So the dear Lord has a sense of humor too. So keeping my own sense of humor, I immediately flipped the meal. The spaghetti remained in the box because I couldn't cook the stuff. The meat sauce I turned into chili. The garlic bread I morphed into saltine crackers. My cake that was still half baked in the now dysfunctional oven, I switched that out for homemade brownies that thankfully I had in the refrigerator. Okay, so you throw a bunch of candles because we had no light, and lots of wine, and the evening was wonderful. It went great. Yeah, yay! Now, one more example of a sense of humor. A sense of humor can also lighten the life of your colleagues and your friends and your coworkers. So in one instance, I threw a festive St. Patrick's Day party for my unit, complete with the green beer and the cabbage and the corned beef and the limericks and all that. At midnight, I moved the buffet from my house to take care of my troops in a secure building who are working the graveyard shift. The sense of humor is that I brought that food to them still decked out as a leprechaun. So I had my gold glittered top hat, I had my Kelly green knickers, and my shoes with the buckles, okay? So here comes this leprechaun up the hill. Now, the army guards, who have no sense of humor, The Army Guards, armed with their high-powered rifles, okay, looked askance at this leprechaun approaching them in the dark of the night. Happily, they didn't shoot. But I was able to deliver the food. My troops loved the food. They loved the fact that they had a nutty commander, and that added to the unit's morale. So that was a home run also. Okay, the second tool I want to give you, this is one that my mother gave me. Abolish the word can't from your vocabulary. No such word as can't, she told me time and time and time again. To achieve something truly significant, you have to challenge yourself, stretch the capabilities, and you will be amazed at what you can actually achieve. So the situation for this one, I once commanded the 2,800 Air Force personnel that were assigned to the National Security Agency. I arrived at that post 1 month before the formal Air Force birthday ball, which my unit hosted it, and I was expected to preside over that event. 1 month beforehand was too late to effect the planning for that particular event. It was horrible. It was boring, it was poorly attended, and there was zero Air Force esprit de corps. Now, what happens is when you're working in a major civilian facility, that sometimes erodes the military esprit de corps. Well, I loved my Air Force, and damned, I was going to bring it back again, that hoorah spirit. So I determined that next year's birthday ball, we were going to have a sellout crowd, and we were going to have a waiting line for tickets. But I had to overcome 2 hurdles to do that. The first is we had to have buckets of fundraisers to be able to defray the cost of the tickets so the younger enlisted troops could come. And the second is I needed a showstopper guest speaker. Now, my mother always told me, set your goals high and shoot for the stars. And that's what I did. My chosen target was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Now, to put that in context for you, imagine a triangle, okay? In that triangle, I want you to put the entire American military, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, all in that triangle. And that equates to about 3.1 million people if you count the active duty, the reservists, and the civilians working for those agencies. Now, in that same triangle, in the farthest right corner, make a pinprick. That was my organization. General Shelton, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, is at the apex. He's at the tip top of that triangle. So people said, audacious, crazy, can't be done, Carla. You're never going to get the general to come speak to the audience. I said, watch me. So I composed a 3-paragraph letter, an invitation, and I explained to General Shelton what I was trying to do about the Air Force esprit de corps, and I beseeched him to please come as a guest speaker. And then I took that piece of paper and I rolled it up and I wrapped it in camouflage netting, because he was Army and he understands camouflage netting. And then in that camouflage netting, I had a stick. And on that stick, my young daughter, the day before, had taped a little American flag, Scotch tape on a stick. I crammed that into the camouflage netting, and that was the invitation. And you know what? He came. You know what? So did 650 other people. We maxed out the seating capacity, and I had a waiting list for tickets. So the theme for that event was celebrate the blue, because blue is Air Force, and we certainly did that. So the moral there is there's no such word as can't. If you want to make something happen, just dig down and pull it out. The final tool I offer you all is the most important. Learn to write powerfully. This skill pays a lifetime of dividends. Now here's a quick glimpse of what awaits you outside the academic cocoon. Employers in government, corporations, private business, and non-governmental agencies urgently seek people who can write with focused precision. Why? In addition to changing lives, in addition to being a fundamental leadership tool, powerful writing is the lifeblood of successful organizations. Now, this pertains not only to journalism and communication, but also business, finance, medicine, psychology, education, engineering, and computer science. and more. Why is that so important? So that you can gain the competitive edge when you're marketing products or services, when you're communicating with customers, when you're defending budgets from cuts or trying to advocate for additional resources, or if you're providing input to your own performance reviews, which you will be doing once you get outside of college. The ability to make a compelling case is especially important for technical fields. Why? Because brilliant innovations and research breakthroughs die on the blackboard if you can't advocate for them. If you can't explain in a persuasive case how this is going to benefit somebody or who it's going to benefit and how it's going to benefit your son, because there's other programs out there competing for the same funds. Now, entering college, you have 4 years to practice right to influence techniques in your scholastic assignments. Develop this skill and you will excel among your peers once you graduate there. Situation, I spent hours writing that little 3-paragraph invitation to General Shelton. To pull off the seemingly impossible, each word had to carry the message to elicit the desired results. So I conclude with this thought: do not follow your dream. What? And the answer is that's too passive. Pursue your dream passionately. Pursue your dream passionately. Situation, 7th grade, when I was attending Fairfax Christian School, I decided to join the Air Force. Air Force intelligence in particular. Now the backstory for that is too lengthy for here and now, but I held fast to that dream through junior high school, and college. My first assignment took me to Germany in 1978. In those days, women in the military were rare. When I met my first boss, he said, "Carla, we didn't want a second lieutenant. We fought your assignment, and the personnel system said if we didn't take you, we wouldn't get anybody. So welcome." All right. The next day, I met his boss, the colonel, who was a nice man, but he said, with no malicious intent whatsoever, he said, "Carla, why don't you just go home and raise a family?" Right? That was the environment back in those days. But I wasn't hurt, I wasn't angry, and I certainly wasn't intimidated. If anything, I doubled down on my intent to excel. I mean, this was my dream. I had 10 years of pent-up enthusiasm, and nobody was going to rain on my parade. So, indeed, when that tour concluded, I received the Meritorious Service Medal, which was an award. Never do second lieutenants get that. Captains don't get that. Majors, if they're lucky, get an MSM, but I received one. So my advice to all of you, not just the gals, is don't let anybody step on your dreams. Pursue them with a passion. So your imaginary toolbox is now full. You're equipped to take the next steps in building your future, designed to your own specifications, skills, and desires. And I wish you great success and joy in all of your endeavors.